If you spend any time driving around the Florida Panhandle, especially, that curve of coast near Panama City, you are going to get hit with the slogan.
Yeah.
It is relentless. It's on pickup trucks, it's in shop windows, T-shirts. 3 words: keep St. Andrews salty.
It sounds a bit aggressive, doesn't it?
Little bit, yeah.
Or maybe culinary, like someone's really, worried about under-seasoned soup.
Oh, right. My first thought was, is this just a marketing gimmick? Did the local tourism board sit in a room and decide, hey, salty sounds cool, let's print some stickers?
Mm.
But then you look around the place and it doesn't feel manufactured. It feels lived in.
That's because it's not a marketing pitch. It's a battle cry. And frankly, it's a miracle that there's even a town there to have a slogan at all.
Okay, that's the vibe I want to chase today. We're not just looking at a bumper sticker. We're looking at the 500-year struggle that sticker represents.
A big story.
And we're basing this deep dive on The Tides That Made Us, Stories of St. Andrews by Bob Taylor. And Bob is interesting because he's a local guy born in Panama City who went off, had a big career.
In science and business, yeah.
And then came back to retire.
And when he came back, he realized something that I think happens to a lot of us. He knew the geography, he knew where the fish were, where the sun set, but he didn't know why the place was the way it was.
He didn't know the story.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He realized he was living on top of a history he just didn't understand. So he went digging. He pulled up old maps, forgotten journals, old photos, just to figure out how this little village survived.
And what he found is that St. Andrews is basically the town that refuses to die.
That is the core theme. If we're to define salty for anyone listening, whether you're a history buff or like an elementary schooler trying to figure out why your town is weird, it comes down to resilience.
Okay.
But not just we rebuilt a house. We're talking about a place that geography and history have tried to wipe off the map. Repeatedly. For 5 centuries.
Let's start with that geography. Because when I think of Florida, I think white sand beaches. Pretty static, pretty safe.
And that is absolutely the wrong mental image for the 1500s. We have to go way back to the Spanish explorers.
Okay.
They sail into the Gulf. They find this incredible, deep, protected bay. It happens to be the feast day of St. Andrew, so they name it Bahia de San Andres, St. Andrews Bay.
Simple enough. So the Spanish plant a flag. They name it. Done deal.
Far from it. This is where the source material gets really interesting about the ground beneath their feet.
What do you mean?
If you look at the maps from the 1600s, 1700s, and try to line them up with, say, a Google Earth view today, you'd think the cartographers were drunk.
Nothing lines up.
Nothing, because the land itself wouldn't sit still. Think of the coastline like an Etch-a-Sketch that someone is constantly shaking.
Oh.
We're talking about barrier islands. These aren't solid bedrock. They're just shifting piles of sand. A hurricane rolls through, and suddenly an island splits in two.
So a new pass opens up.
A pass to the Gulf opens on Tuesday and silts shut by Friday.
So you couldn't build a port because you couldn't guarantee where the door was.
Exactly. It was a wild, volatile landscape. You'd build a settlement near a pass, hoping to trade, and 5 years later, the pass is gone, and you're landlocked. This volatility is why, for the first few hundred years, nobody could make a permanent settlement stick.
It wasn't just the Spanish, though. The British took a swing at it, too, right?
They did, 1763. The British take control of Florida. Settlers arrive, and they think they've cracked the code. They start farming. They find these wild grapes growing everywhere.
Sounds like paradise.
It looks like it,
Yeah.
but I'm guessing you know where this is going.
Yeah, based on the theme here, it probably didn't end well.
It's a mystery, actually.
Yeah.
This is one of my favorite details from Taylor's research. By the late 1800s, when new settlers arrived, those British homes were gone. The people had just vanished.
No ruins, no walls.
Nothing. There were no stone walls left standing.
So what was left?
Rosemary.
Like the herb.
Huge tangled thickets of rosemary bushes. The British had planted them in their gardens. The wood rotted, the people died or left, the civilization was erased, but the rosemary took over.
Wow.
The source quotes Shakespeare, "Rosemary for remembrance." It's this haunting image. The land swallowed the town but kept the garnish.
That is incredibly spooky. It really drives home that reset button idea you mentioned. It's like the land was actively rejecting civilization.
It was a revolving door.
Huh.
Spanish, British, early Americans, they all tried and they all got kicked out by the environment.
Yeah.
By the early 1800s, there were effectively no descendants of those first groups left.
The board was wiped clean.
Completely.
So who finally manages to jam a foot in the door and keep it there?
Enter John Clark,
Yeah.
1827. And Clark isn't a drifter. He's a guy with a plan. He was the first one to really treat this place like a real estate project. He surveyed the land, bought the property, laid out a grid.
But he wasn't building a resort.
No, not at all. Florida wasn't a vacation spot back then.
Oh, right.
It was a frontier. Clark wanted industry. He wanted a working port. And this leads us to the literal origin of the word salty. We throw it around as a metaphor now, but in the mid-1800s, salt was the economy.
You mean they were actually mining salt?
Not mining, boiling. During the Civil War specifically, salt was more valuable than gold.
Why is that?
You needed to preserve meat for the armies. If you didn't have salt, your soldiers starved. St. Andrews Bay, with its high salinity and endless supply of firewood, became a massive salt factory.
Just huge kettles boiling seawater.
Day and night.
So when people say keep St. Andrews salty, they could be referencing a time when the town was basically a giant outdoor chemical plant for the Confederacy?
In a way, yes, and that industry is exactly why the town got destroyed again.
The Civil War reset.
The Union Navy wasn't going to let the South keep making salt. In 1863, they blockaded the bay. They came ashore and smashed the kettles, burned the salt works, and burned the village of Old St. Andrews to the ground.
So we're back to square one, just burnt wood and rosemary bushes.
It looked that way. The population just plummeted. But the geography, that deep-water bay, was still there.
And after the war.
You had a new dynamic. The South was in ruins, but up north you had investors, speculators, guys looking for the next big thing.
And this is the marketing blitz era the book talks about.
It is the boom that almost was.
Mm-hmm.
Enter the St. Andrews Bay Railroad and Land Company.
Mm-hmm.
In the late 1880s, these guys decided to brute force a city into existence using the Postal Service.
What'd they do?
They mailed out 350,000 brochures all across the United States.
Wait, 350,000 in the 1880s? That's an insane amount of paper.
It was a saturation campaign.
Mm.
And the brochures were, let's call them optimistic.
They were lying.
They promised a metropolis, a Cincinnati of the South. They showed bustling ports and rail lines that simply didn't exist. They were selling a fantasy to people in the frozen Midwest.
Did anyone buy it?
They did. People bought lots sight unseen. They showed up with their trunks expecting a city, and they found, well, scrub brush and sandspray.
Ouch, that must have been a harsh reality check.
It was a disaster for the investors.
Yeah?
And the company eventually folded. But, and this is the resilience part, a lot of those people stayed.
Really?
Yeah. They built the Victorian houses that still line the streets today. They laid out the roads. The scam failed, but it accidentally built the skeleton of the village we know now.
But they still had that one major problem we talked about, the a sketch coastline. You can't have a Cincinnati of the South if ships can't get in.
Correct. And this brings us to the most critical pivot point in the entire history of St. Andrews. If you want to know why the town exists today, it's not because of a railroad or a war.
What is it then?
It's because of the Army Corps of Engineers in the 1930s.
They decided to fight the ocean.
And they won. They dredged a deep channel, the Cut, and they lined it with massive granite jetties. Think about the engineering. They hauled giant rocks out into the shifting sands of the Gulf and basically built a doorstop.
They forced the land to sit still.
For the first time in 500 years, the entrance to the bay was permanent. It was safe. And the moment that channel opened, the destiny of St. Andrews changed forever. It wasn't just a place to survive anymore. It was a place to work.
And this brings in the era that I think most locals visualize when they hear salty. The 50s, 60s, 70s, the golden age of the working waterfront.
This is the aesthetic. Picture the marina packed with wooden shrimp boats, nets drying in the sun, ice plants chugging away to pack the catch. And then you had tourism, but it wasn't fancy, it was head boats.
I've heard that term, but for anyone listening who didn't grow up on the coast, what exactly is a headboat?
It's kind of like the bus of the ocean. Instead of chartering a private yacht for thousands of dollars, you pay by the head, maybe 10 or 20 bucks back then.
So it's affordable.
Right. You pile onto a big boat with 40 other people shoulder to shoulder holding a fishing rod, and you go out to the reef.
It's democratic fishing.
It is. It's accessible, it's loud, it smells like diesel and bait. And the captains running these boats became legends. These weren't corporate employees. They were independent, tough, funny, sometimes grumpy characters.
This is where the personality forms.
It really solidifies here. The source calls it a gritty, no-frills working bayfront.
Now, while St. Andrews is building this gritty identity, something very different is happening just a few miles away. Panama City Beach is exploding.
And this contrast is crucial. You can't understand St. Andrews without understanding the beach. In the 80s and 90s, Panama City Beach became the spring break capital of the world.
Oh, yeah.
Neon lights, high-rise condos blocking the sun, chain restaurants, plastic souvenir shops. It was all engineered for mass tourism.
It was the new shiny object.
Exactly. And usually when a new shiny object appears, the old town tries to copy it. St. Andrews could have tried to bulldoze its history to build mini golf courses.
But they didn't?
No, they went the other way. The rise of the beach forced St. Andrews to define itself as the alternative.
The anti-beach.
If the beach was plastic, St. Andrews was timber. If the beach was a franchise, St. Andrews was family-owned. If the beach was frantic, St. Andrews was, well, salty.
It became the place for the locals, the real Florida.
It became the living room of the community. It's where you went to hear a band play original music, not covers. Where you bought fresh seafood off a boat, not frozen stuff from a truck. That divergence created the salty identity as a real badge of honor.
But sticking to your guns doesn't mean you're safe. And we have to talk about the most recent reset button, 2018 Hurricane Michael.
You can't overstate the violence of that storm. Category 5, it hit St. Andrews like a bomb. The marina, that heart of the community we just talked about, was obliterated.
Just gone.
Both thrown into parking lots. Historic oak trees that had survived the Civil War were just snapped in half.
When you look at photos from the day after, it looks hopeless. It looks like the end of the story.
It could have been. And honestly, in many other places, that would have been the moment the big developers swoop in. Hey, you're ruined. Sell us the land cheap. We'll build a resort.
But that didn't happen.
No. The salty spirit kicked in. And this is where the bumper sticker moves from being a slogan to being an action plan. The people didn't wait for the government to save them. They didn't sell out.
What do they do?
Neighbors showed up with chainsaws to clear each other's driveways. Restaurants fired up grills on the sidewalk to feed people for free before they even had roofs over their own heads.
That's powerful. It's that stubbornness again.
It is. And the rebuild was fast, but it was also very intentional. They rebuilt it to look like St. Andrews, not like Miami.
So let's bring this to the sidewalk level today. If I'm walking through St. Andrews right now, what am I seeing? Because we want a kid to be able to understand this salty concept.
Okay, if you're walking down Beck Avenue today, the first thing you notice is what's missing. You don't see the golden arches. You don't see the Green Mermaid coffee sign.
No franchises.
Very few. Instead, you see a blackboard outside a restaurant listing the fish caught that morning by a guy the chef knows by name.
I love that.
You hear music drifting out of a bar, but it's a local jazz trio or a songwriter. You see a shop selling handmade soap or pottery, and the person behind the counter is the artist.
It feels like a small town, but not a sleepy one.
Right. It's vibrant, and the marina is being redeveloped now, a huge project. But the goal and the fight is to keep it accessible. It's not becoming a private yacht club for billionaires. It's staying a working, welcoming space where a kid can go fish off the dock.
So if we have to boil this all down, if we have to explain keep St. Andrews salty to someone who has never been there or to that elementary school kid, what does it actually mean?
It's not just about ocean water.
Oh.
I think it comes down to 3 specific things. First, it means independent. It's the refusal to be a carbon copy of everywhere else, choosing the local owner over the big corporation.
Okay, that makes sense.
Second, it means resilient. Think of those jetty rocks or that rosemary bush. It's the ability to take a hit, a war, a failed economy, a Cat 5 hurricane, and not just survive, but grow back stronger.
And the third thing?
And third, and maybe most importantly, it means authentic.
Authentic is kind of a buzzword these days, though.
It is, but here it has a physical weight. Salty means you have scratches and dents. A brand new plastic toy isn't salty. An old wooden boat that's weathered a dozen storms has chipped paint, but still floats perfectly.
That's salty.
That's salty. St. Andrews is proud of its scratches. It's part of the fact that it's a little gritty.
It's the difference between a theme park version of a fishing village and an actual fishing village.
Exactly. A theme park is designed to be perfect. St. Andrews is designed to be real. And that's what Bob Taylor's book really captures. He came back looking for his roots and found that his roots were tangled up in this incredibly tough, stubborn soil.
And keep St. Andrews salty is basically a promise to keep it that way, to not polish off all the rough edges.
It's a promise to the past, to those salty captains, to the settlers who failed, to the people who rebuilt after Michael. It's saying we know who we are and we aren't changing for anyone.
It's a fascinating case study. We started with a bumper sticker, and we ended up with 5 centuries of coastal engineering, war, and sociology.
That's the beauty of deep history. Everything comes from something.
So here's the question for you listening to this. Whether you're in a car or walking your dog or sitting at a desk, think about your own town.
I love this challenge. Look at your own geography. St. Andrews is the way it is because of the bay. The water shaped the economy, the storms shaped the architecture, and that constant struggle shaped the personality of the people.
So does your town have a landscape that defines it?
Are you tough because you live in a frozen mountain valley? Are you fast-paced because you live at a river crossing where trade always moved quickly? Are you isolated because you're on an island?
We like to think we define our cities.
But usually the land defines us. St. Andrews just happened to listen to the ocean and decided to embrace the salt.
And thank goodness they did. A huge thank you to Bob Taylor for The Tides That Made Us. It is a fantastic read if you want to get deeper into this history.
It really is.
And to everyone listening, next time you see a bumper sticker, don't just write it off. There might be a whole civilization's worth of struggle stuck to that chrome.
Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive.
Stay salty, everyone.